Hi, my name is Reed Silverne. The name of the show is Fed Pride. The reason it's called Fed Pride is because I'm a federal worker and proud of it. Actually, I'm a federal worker retired and rehired part-time. Everything you see is live to tape. I'm taping this on Friday, the 5th of September. You're probably going to be watching it at Sunday the 7th or Tuesday the 9th, depending on when you pick it up. Therefore, everything I say is probably going to be obsolete. Everything I do is live to tape. If I fall off the chair, you're going to see me fall off the chair. If I look over there, because I'm checking to see whether my voice is on, then you see me look over there and away from the camera. So I like to think of my show as delightfully unprofessional, and it is. So on that note, let me go on to our subject of the day. Basically, a lot has happened in the last 2 weeks. Last week I was visiting my sainted mother, and so I wasn't able to do the show. So I've been showing the same show for 2 weeks in a row. And during that 2 weeks, we had the Democratic Convention, then the Republican Convention, and I know I've been on foreign policy mostly, or economic policy, especially concerning commodity prices, oil prices, and so on and so forth. And I've neglected politics. One of the reasons I don't talk a lot about politics, and I think I will for the next month and a half, is because as American citizens, we're all experts in politics. We have the right to choose. We have the right to vote. All of you who choose not to vote, fine with me, because I get extra power from your lack of voting. So if only half the people vote, I get 2 votes. And I'm very, very pleased to take your vote if you're a non-voter. But if you are a voter and you read the papers, no matter what papers they are, the Inquirer or the Fox News Network or MSNBC, right or left, up or down, Democrat or Republican, again, your opinion is as valid as anybody else's. Certainly as valid as mine, and as valid as the most intellectual pundit on the air or the dumbest guy who walks by. The only people who don't have much of an opinion, the people who don't vote, and the reason they don't vote is because that's fine with them. But it's, again, should be fine with you and fine with me, because we basically steal their votes. So usually there's about a 50% turnout, a little bit higher. So I end up with 2 votes, and all of you people who vote out there end up with 2 votes. I'm sure you're happy about it. Meanwhile, we're probably going to have an election the first Tuesday of November, and already it's the beginning of September. So in 2 months, we are going to pick the most powerful person in the entire free world. And a difficult world it is, because just now during this kind of slow period during the summer, we've already had Russia invade Georgia and try to detach 2 little enclaves, Abkhazia and South Ossetia from Georgia, and to cut off a pipeline from this very, very highly oil and natural gas intense country of Azerbaijan through Georgia and down here to the Mediterranean Sea, bypassing not only Russia but Turkey and bringing oil to everything else. That pipeline was disrupted during that period, and yet the price of oil has gone down and down and down. Meanwhile, we have hurricanes coming in, hurricane hitting Louisiana that didn't cause as much damage as Katrina did, and oil, which was almost 150 and had gone down to the 110s. I think might have gone up for a day at 120, and now is shot back down to 106. At least as of Friday. Could be 108 on Monday or 104 on Monday. It's hard to say. But oil has followed the other commodities since, if you've been listening to my show, the Commodities Future Trading Commission, my heroes at the CFTC, which have resumed oversight over commodities and the ICE and the NYMEX and all these commodity markets, now know who is manipulating, when they're manipulating. And as a result, almost all the commodities have gone down 20 to 30% from their highs, and they didn't go down to where they were. Meanwhile, the dollar is improving. You'd think everything would be getting better, but it's not. The unemployment, which just came out today, is at its highest level in 5 years at 6.1%. Tell you, if you lived in the 70s, where we had 9 and 10% official unemployment, you would be saying, oh boy, this is great. But the fact of the matter is that more and more people are retirement eligible. We have a smaller generation coming into the workforce. So 6% unemployment is very, very high. Plus, there's another 1.5% discouraged workers, which during the 80s, we decided to take off the unemployment rolls. And those are people who stopped looking for work. So the real unemployment rate is about 7.6%, higher than it's been historically. In the last, since the 90s and 2000s, but lower than it's been at other times in American history. Still not good. So what's occurred on the political front? Everybody says Barack Obama is tremendously popular. The first Black American president or nominee of a major party. Definitely an historic moment. Barack Obama is, if anything, a beautiful speaker, very erudite. But in my opinion, of course, I am a Republican, but I'm I consider myself kind of maverick because when I don't like a president, I don't vote for him, a Republican side. And to be honest with you, I didn't vote for George Bush. And so I will vote for a Democrat if I like him more than the Republican. But the fact of the matter is I've always been a fan of John McCain. During the primaries, I was on John McCain's side. And Barack Obama picked Biden, very, very responsible, head of the Foreign Relations Committee and the Judiciary Committee, another senator. Of course, we're not getting a lot of executive depth in there. Usually you'll pick a governor if you're coming in as a senator, or if you're a governor, then you'll pick a senator as a vice president, or something else. And basically, ironically, 3 of the 4 candidates, and both presidential candidates, come out of the Senate. Very, very unusual. And for the most part, people have not been able, with the exception of John F. Kennedy, go straight from the Senate straight into the presidency. I'm not sure why that is. It just could be that the senatorial candidate just wasn't the most popular or charismatic guy. Certainly Bob Dole in 1996, who ran against Clinton, was not the most popular guy and didn't win. So there you are. However, basically the whole strategy, in my opinion, of the Democratic side is to present Barack Obama as somebody new and fresh, which he is. Basically to kind of embarrass people into voting for him, because to not vote him into office would be to lose this tremendous historical opportunity to elect the first minority, I guess you might say, president. Of course, Barack Obama is as white as he is black. He's half and half. So he's a pretty mainstream kind of guy, and they are presenting him as somewhat mainstream. Is he mainstream? We'll talk about that a little bit. So I've taken a look at Barack Obama, and I have to say he's not radical on foreign policy. Most of his foreign policy advisors, even some of the ones he's had to fire because they've said this or that, Susan Powers and some of these other ones, are basically Clintonites. They're not going to be Dennis Ross. They're not going to be people who are going to withdraw our military from every country in the world. They're not going to walk away from wars, although I do believe that Obama might walk away from Iraq. I'm not sure that he has a practical policy on that. But we'll see. He's been moderating his policy more and more every time he speaks, and now that he's going after less anti-war general electorate. So I don't think he gets that we're in a new Cold War. I've been talking about it a lot. I think Putin, who declared the new Cold War in 2007, came right out there and invaded Georgia, a neighboring country, and with troops on the slightest of pretext that the Georgians shelled a capital of a breakaway republic that they themselves were in their territory. And of course, what nobody mentioned in the news at the time is that the militia of that breakaway republic, South Ossetia, which held Russian passports, Russia has given all the South Ossetian citizens Russian passports, and were trained by Russia, were attacking ethnic Georgians. So the real war had started a week before. And the Russians came in with 1,200 tanks and 30,000 troops. And if we hadn't stopped them through diplomacy, I guess you might say, or the French, they would have marched into the capital of Georgia, overthrown its government, and made it into a puppet government, and basically cut off the only pipeline coming from Central Asia that doesn't go through Russia proper. So what's the result of that? The result of that is that we live in a more dangerous world. There's also been a realignment of forces, a lot to our benefit. And I think Biden understands that, and I think McCain understands that. This row of countries over here, the Baltic countries, Belarus, who's pro-Russian, Moldova, the Ukraine, Georgia, of course, Azerbaijan, and not so much Armenia. They're all worried that Russia might come back and find its way back to its USSR and Tsarist borders again, in which case they would take all of this back into Russia. Is that possible? I don't think that'll happen, but it certainly could. And there's no doubt about it. Putin and Medvedev have said that's what we want. And also Poland demanded that we put the anti-missile base on their territory, where they were shaky about it and backing away before. Czech is where the radar is going to go. Slovakia, Hungary, all of these countries, even for 5 years, half of Austria, and for almost all the Cold War for 50 years, half of Germany, were all under the thumb of the Russians and don't like it much. So a lot of these areas are not very favorable toward Russian expansionism. Now, there was a meeting of what they call a Shanghai Cooperation Council. Shanghai Cooperation Council is Russia, and of course China has been voting with Russia in the Security Council against the Western nations for the last year or two. And I think Putin thought that they would be in their pocket. Kazakhstan, a very big oil producer, but most of their oil goes into pipelines that go through Russia. Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, and China all belong to the Shanghai Cooperation Council. And I think Russia expected the Shanghai Cooperation Council to condemn Georgia and to say that the two breakaway republics that they had pushed that they had recognized would be recognized by the Shanghai Cooperation Council countries. I think Mongolia is in there too. They completely rejected Russia's position, said that Georgian territorial integrity has to be kept, and territorial integrity means that Abkhazia and South Ossetia still remains part of Georgia. Big setback for the Russians, and are we going to exploit it? Hard to say. It's hard to say how smart we are or where we're at. The West Europeans are dependent on Russian oil and gas for their energy, but also there's been a tremendous withdrawal of foreign capital from Russia after the stunt that they pulled in Georgia. So they're hurting as a result. So what does this mean? Again, we have a situation where we live in a dangerous world, and McCain is a war hero. Point for McCain. We have a terrible economy and unemployment is going up. Point for Barack Obama. Barack Obama wants to pull out of Iraq. For the most part, I think that he finally has changed his mind on it. Said that the surge isn't working and that Iraq isn't getting better and we better pull out as quickly as possible. And now I better control the world over here. Not working out that way. Basically, even despite the fact and because of the fact that things are getting better, Maliki wants us out, which of course is a point for Barack Obama. But the fact that we are appearing to be on the way toward victory in the sense of overthrowing Saddam, which we have already done, and leaving a stable Iraq, that appears to be happening. Things are getting worse in Afghanistan, however. But Barack Obama doesn't want to pull out of Afghanistan. He only wants to pull out of Iraq. So both sides say, let's go in, put more troops in Afghanistan and win the war against al-Qaeda. And there's been some events on that, but they're complex and I don't want to go into them too much. So what's the bottom line? Bottom line is that for all the months before the two conventions, Barack Obama was 6 to 8 points ahead of McCain in almost all the polls, the tracking polls, the presidential polls, and so on and so forth. And it looked like the Democrats had a lock on this. However, there's been some changes. Barack Obama, McCain almost came even with him right before the Democratic convention. Barack Obama got a convention bounce and went back to where he was, which is about 50% versus McCain at 42. Now we have a situation where after the Republican convention, this could be another temporary bounce, McCain and Barack Obama almost dead even. I think it's 47-46 or 48-47. On the electoral map, still looks a little better for Obama, but in the long-term trend seems to be tightening up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look away over here, and I'm going to pull up a PowerPoint charts that I got over here. Let's see if I can find them. Yeah, there they are. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to disappear my myself, and I hope that this works. And I'm going to show you, this here is the Electoral College map of the Bush-Gore election. That's the one that basically deadlocked and that wouldn't allow I'm going to get rid of my title, wouldn't allow a recount in Florida, and a lot of people say that Bush stole it. And basically, you see the whole West Coast, the states around the Great Lakes, with the exception of Indiana and Ohio, and the Northeast, all the way down to Maryland, pretty much going for the Democrats, the blue states, with the exception of New Hampshire. And then all the stuff in the middle, in the South, and 3 in the Midwest, 3 key states, Missouri, Indiana, and Ohio, went for the Republicans, with the exception of New Mexico. And New Mexico has minority population. About 70% of the population is either American Indian or Native American or Mexican American or Latin American. Latino is the right word for it now. Here's the 2004 election. 2004 election, New Hampshire has now gone Democratic. There's an absolute Democratic lock on the entire Northeast, all the way down through Pennsylvania and Maryland. Michigan and the Great Lakes states have all gone for the Democrats, with the exception of Ohio and Indiana. And the Pacific states have all gone completely for the Democrats. The result of this was a very, very close election. I think about 20 difference in the Electoral College. The main difference is that the Democrats from 2000, the Democrats picked up New Hampshire and the Republicans picked up New Mexico. So this has basically been the red state, blue state dichotomy that we have over here. And we don't have it over here, but in both cases, Alaska went to the Republicans and Hawaii went to the Democrats. So what's going on now? After, this is as of September 5th, after the both conventions, but during the period that McCain is just benefiting from his convention bounce, and Obama has lost his convention bounce. The big difference, and I could go on and on about it, was the Republicans picking Sarah Palin to be their vice presidential nominee. Sarah Palin is the governor of Alaska over here, and she's a real, down home, very, very tough lady, hockey mom, the whole 9 yards, union husband, steelworkers union, who works in the North Slope of Alaska, pro-drilling, and I've listened to her speech. Very, very charismatic. So now on both sides we have the uncharismatic member of the team, and the Democratic side, that's Biden, and the Republican side, that's McCain, kind of wonkish, knows the issues. And then we have real orators. We have Obama on the Democratic side, who can really give a speech, just wonderful, very, very forceful and impressive. And then we have now Sarah Palin, who, while might not be as good as Obama, very charming, funny, and biting, very sarcastic style of speech making. And basically, she is the type that can bring back these red states back into the fold. Pro-gun, anti-abortion, the whole 9 yards, just folks just like us. The Democrats have, I believe, made a big mistake in the first period here. Barack Obama is trying very hard to get his people in control and not to address her, not to mention her, and certainly not to put her down. And the surrogates and the pundits in the media are really on, how many colleges she gone to. Her kid is an unwed mom who's being forced into a marriage, all this soap opera type stuff. But basically, they're dumb like a fox, because she is basically proving beyond a shadow of a doubt she has regular problems, blah, 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 and she's one of us. So the more they put her down for going to a podunk college instead of Harvard, like Barack Obama, the more elitist they look, and the more just folks the Republicans look. Here's the 2004 by county, and you can see almost all the rural counties have gone to the Republicans. And you can't see this very much, but the point I'm making here is that it's really closed. 5 September, it's Obama 47, McCain 45. That is within the margin of error. That basically says it's even. Colorado and Ohio are the two leaning to Democrats states that were won by Bush in 2004 and 2000, and those are all within the margin of error too. Very, very close, and things seem to break toward the Republicans, at least the last 3 or 4 times, as you get closer and closer to the election. So I'm going to get off of that and put myself back in. My name is Reed Silverin. The name of the show is Fed Pride. The reason it's called Fed Pride is because I'm a federal worker, proud of it. And I think that it's going to be a toss.